Welcome back, dear students. So let us start with the course on disaster management. In the previous lecture, we discussed about the various outcomes, various objectives of disaster management, the open elective for this session. So again, let us have a quick overview on what we will be discussing in today's session. So we'll be having a look on introduction, the definitions involved. We will be classifying the disasters in various types, seeing the various practices of disaster management and preparedness, the medical and public health response systems, then public health impact for disaster, the mitigation systems. We'll be having a quick look on the recent disasters in India, the management practices followed in India, and the areas of concern. Okay, so let us start. Disasters, as we discussed earlier, are as old as mankind. So even I will say older than mankind. So the first description of disaster management comes from some mythological Noah and his ark. Okay, so flood tales can be seen in Greek mythology and Purans and Mesopotamian stories and many other cultures as well. So disaster can be broken in two words, thus and aster, which are Greek words which say bad star, and calamity due to position of a planet or a star. Then involved in Italian, it can be seen as disastro. In French, it is said as désastre, and then disaster in English. So disaster, we have two definitions here, one from WHO and one from American Red Cross. The one with WHO says that any occurrence that causes damage, ecological disruption, loss of human life, deterioration of health and health services on a scale sufficient to warrant an extraordinary response from outside the affected community or area. A disaster can be defined as an occurrence either nature or man-made that causes human suffering and creates human needs. So this is by American Red Cross. They both essentially means the same, that is the deterioration of health and various services as well as economical disaster. The biggest problem being ecological disruption and loss of human life. So being a specific subject with regards to disaster management, I would suggest that you try to remember these two definitions as it might be asked in the university exams. Now let us discuss something about hazard. So there's a difference between hazard and a disaster. I discussed it in the introductory lecture also. So any phenomena that has potential to cause disruption or damage to people and the environment can be termed as hazard. A hazard is natural event while the disaster is its consequence. This is the most important takeaway from this slide. So a hazard is perceived natural event which threatens both life and property. So it is the potential and the action or the consequence is termed as disaster. According to John Witto, a disaster is a realization of hazard. Okay, so this is the realization. For example, there is a bucket full of water. It is not a disaster, neither a hazard as say, but if the same bucket, if we take a tank, big tank, and if the construction of the tank is not very integrable or very strength has not been regained much, so it becomes a considerable hazard for the people living below it. This might turn into a disaster at any moment. So another example are the tectonic plate movements. We know as a student of geology and civil engineering that tectonic plates, they are continuously moving upon the mantle just below the earth's surface. So what is happening? We are not very much aware that when the next earthquake will come. The earthquakes, as we know, are caused due to the tectonic plate movement, and if we are not aware that which tectonic plate is going to collide with which one, or which one will be sliding or scrapping, so we can't predict. So these are some hazards for human life, and it can be turned into disasters at any moment. Hazards further may be inevitable, but the disasters can be prevented. What does this mean? Let us again take an example of, let us say, flood. So flood might happen, like just in the case of Northeast. The floods are inevitable, or the heavy rainfall is inevitable, and the overflow of river is also inevitable. But the disaster is caused when the water flows above the river surface, enters into the areas where people are living, and devastates it. So that becomes a disaster. How it can be prevented? Definitely suitable measures need to be taken, as the floods are some sort of reoccurring disasters. So any type of prevention measures like relining of rivers, or maybe rehabilitation, or maybe shifting of people from the most vulnerable zone, or maybe creating a very efficient evacuation plan. So possibilities are unlimited. We just need to tap the ones which are practically possible. Next, we have vulnerability. So the prosperity of things to be damaged by a hazard. So for example, again, there is a possibility of earthquake in your particular colony or society, and a lot of old age people are living, and there is a different colony and society where a lot of young people are living. So who will be more vulnerable? The old ones who are not very much able to react and respond at a very fast pace to any calamity, or the young and energetic ones who are highly dynamic and who can respond to any type of calamity in a fraction of time? So who will you term as more vulnerable? Definitely the one colony that is having a higher ratio of old age people. So it depends upon the exposure to hazard, it may be high or low. It also depends upon the capacity to cope with the hazard or the disaster. So with this estimation, we can find out which part or which of the section is highly vulnerable and having a high vulnerability criteria. So next, progression of vulnerability, we have divided into three parts: the root causes, the dynamic pressures, the unsafe conditions, and how hazards are developed. So the root causes involve the limited access to power, the limited access to good structures and resources. Also, ideologies play an important role in becoming the root cause, such as the political ideology of a particular state, or the economical system or the economic condition of that particular area. So dynamic pressures, these include the lack of local institutes, lack of training, lack of appropriate skills with the people, lack of local investment markets, lack of media freedom, and ethical standards in public life. So if there are lack of training institutes in a vulnerable area, the vulnerability further increases. If the public life, if the society is missing on the ethical standards, once again we see a dynamic pressure developing upon the hazard to turn into disaster at any time. The most important becomes the local investment. If the investments are low by the state or by the private industries, then the resilience that may be generated by the local society is further reduced. Some of the macro forces have been also discussed, such as rapid population growth. So many a times we have seen in context of India that in a public place, due to some or the other problems, it might be a terrorist attack, it might be a structural failure, or it might be some natural calamity. So with such a high population, a haphazard way, a panic is created. So what happens due to that panic? The people, they get frightened and nervous. They further start running wherever the exit possible for them. Such people, what happens unfortunately is, all such people, they might have developed a vulnerable situation in which they all might create a stampede. What is a stampede? हिंदी में कहते हैं भगदड़ मच गई, या किसी भारी आबादी वाले पब्लिक प्लेस जैसे कि मंदिर, मस्जिद, चर्च या कोई टूरिस्ट स्पॉट, अगर ऐसी किसी जगह पे कोई विपदा आ जाए, नेचुरल कैलेमिटी आ जाए, या कोई आतंकवादी हमला हो जाए, या कोई भी स्ट्रक्चरल फेलियर हो जाए, तो वहां पे भगदड़ की स्थिति देखने को मिलती है. Next comes rapid urbanization. So again, as you can see, whenever move into any city, let us take an example of our capital city Jaipur, or let us even take our city Ajmer. So due to rapid urbanization, it has become a problem for hazard and disaster management. How? Suppose an example of very heavy rainfall. Even in the last year, if you remember, due to heavy rainfalls, flood-like situations were created near the Dargah area and also near the Ana Sagar Lake area because of its low lying. Further, what happened that due to rapid urbanization, and most importantly, the rapid urbanization is not a problem, the rapid urbanization in an uncontrolled and unstructured way becomes a much bigger problem. So what happens? What happened that due to rapid urbanization, the water was not able to be escaped or evacuated through its natural drains or channels. So this problem comes again and again in the metropolitan cities like Mumbai. Now rapid urbanization has created a lot of issue in the metro city of Mumbai. I will take one example. It is a case study which I have read recently. So what happened that many of the local inland water areas or inland water systems, they were converted into the earthen land, or these low-lying areas were filled with gravel and sand to create artificial land. So what happened? These low-lying areas or lakes and further natural bodies, they were one of the sources where the excess rainfall used to go, and in the event of heavy rainfall, it acted as buffer. It further helped in reducing the disaster that is caused by the floods. Now due to rapid urbanization, the same area was converted into land and buildings were constructed. Now the space for water to leave was considerably reduced. Now because of it, again and again, we have been hearing the news ever since the year 2004-2005 that heavy rainfalls are causing floods, blockages, deaths in metro cities like Mumbai and Chennai. Next we have arms expenditure. Now, how it is related to the dynamic pressure of vulnerability? The arms expenditure, if it is more for a particular nation, it means that it is vulnerable to disasters like wars or some terrorist prone area, like might be possible that a lot of terrorist activities might be possible in that particular area. So this arms expenditure in turns reduces the expenditure which should have been made for the disaster mitigation and other management practices. Next we have deforestation, depth removals and decline in soil productivity. Now decline in soil productivity and deforestation, we can compile it together. Let us consider a particular area in which the soil productivity was high. There were a good amount of variety of trees and shrubs and plants, and even due to some or the other reason, we are not much concerned about it. The soil productivity went down. What happens? Once the soil productivity goes down, the natural hydrological cycle gets disturbed, the ecological cycle gets disturbed. So what happens because of that? As a result, in the event of rainfall, the erosion, which was relatively very less earlier, might get increased. The disasters such as drought might come up, and disasters like unavailability of food for the masses, such type of disasters might develop. Same is the case with deforestation as well. Now let us take the third point under the progression of the vulnerability conditions are the unsafe conditions, such as fragile physical environment. There might be locations which are dangerous, such as very old buildings which have not been maintained structurally, unprotected buildings and infrastructure. Dangerous locations include in places near the disaster vulnerable or hazardous industries like chemical industries or maybe nuclear power plants and etc. So the residential areas or the society which has been developed in the nearby areas might have fragile environment. Further, low income levels and the standard of living and the economical progress might, if it is low, it might create a fragile local economy. Next we have vulnerable society. So as I discussed the example of earthquake in which two areas were there. One area was having a higher majority of old age people and other with younger people. So vulnerable societies may be developed and special groups at risk can be easily identified. And next we have public actions. Public actions, we mean the actions taken by the state and the government. So it includes lack of preparedness even for the endemics. Like we have recently seen, we were totally unaware that from somewhere or another such a deadly virus such as coronavirus might come up, and it will create a havoc and it will completely change our life for the coming years. Next we have hazards which might develop due to these, which might even create a very worst disaster because of if these conditions are fulfilled. So if these things are not prevented, these risks plus the hazards which are possible might further increase the vulnerability and which will result in very deadly disaster. So some of these hazards include the earthquake, high winds, hurricanes, cyclones, typhoons, floods, volcanic eruptions, landslides, drought, virus, bacteria, pest infection, fire calamity, chemical radiations, even the armed conflicts. So the combination is very deadly and it might create disaster. Now a home assignment for you all is to find the basic definitions regarding the hazards which I have mentioned, and also to explore the various factors of root causes, dynamic pressures and unsafe conditions by your own through the internet. These are some of the bigger points. If you are able to identify the detailing for the same, it will be very helpful for the university exams. Okay, let us move ahead. Now let us try to classify some disasters. In pictures you can see some of the worst disasters that the humanity has seen globally. It includes earthquakes, terror attacks, volcanic eruptions, disastrous floods, tsunamis, etc. So again we can classify the two into two: natural disasters and man-made disasters. So natural disasters might be meteorological, topographical or environmental, while man-made disasters might be technological, it might be industrial, or it might be a case of warfare. Now natural disasters, they can be meteorological disasters such as floods, tsunami, cyclone, hurricane, typhoon, snowstorm, blizzard, hailstorm and others. Topographical disasters include earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, landslides, avalanches, asteroids and limnic eruptions. So again a home assignment, since I have given you the broad idea regarding various meteorological and topographical disasters, I request you to kindly jot down some points with regards to individual disasters, as you might expect some short notes in the university exams. So that's my recommendation. I am not recommending any particular book as of now, because the entire syllabus is not available in one particular book. There has to be multiple sources which we need to study from, and the slides which I have prepared for you all, it will be very helpful, and definitely these are not sufficient. Even more data and even more type of good information might be available on the internet. So what you can do, you can explore these particular disasters and the mitigation measures, the management measures which are taken. So let us move on. Environmental disasters, it might include global warming. Next we have El Nino Southern Oscillation, ozone depletion, ultraviolet radiations, solar flare. So the meteorological disasters and topographical disasters we have read multiple times in the past as well. We are little aware about the global warming as well, I understand. Now let us define global warming. Global warming itself is not a disaster. Because why? Global warming is a natural phenomena and it has been occurring over the millions of years. How? You will say, sir, what are you saying, sir? Global warming is a disaster and it is creating rise in water levels, the snow is melting. See, global warming is itself not a disaster. Any change in the global warming, for example, recently we have seen increase in global warming. So increase in global warming is definitely a disaster. And global warming, as we know, is caused due to the artificial activities which have been done by us humans, due to some geographical activities as well. It might be due to the various greenhouse gases such as methane, sulfates, carbon dioxides and others. Such greenhouse gases have even resulted in ozone depletion, and due to which the UV radiations have increased. UV radiations are ultraviolet radiations. Now let us discuss what is this El Nino Southern Oscillation. Now, if you study the subject of geography, we study a typical concept of Indian monsoons. Now, where does it begin? There comes two concepts. One is El Nino, and other one is La Nina. Okay. So in El Nino, what is happening? The warm currents in the oceanic currents develop on the western side of Southern America, that is Chile, Peru, etc. And due to these oceanic currents, it helps in working as catalyst for the Indian monsoon phenomena, in which the ocean currents reach up to Bay of Bengal. Further, they enhance the natural monsoonal cycle for India. In case there might be times, and it has happened multiple times, thousands of times, and even uncountable times, that sometimes due to some or other conditions, between 5 to 6 years, what happens that this El Nino southern oscillation, this phenomena gets disturbed, and because of it, the required oceanic currents are not formed, which results in weaker Indian monsoon. Now, this entire concept of El Nino, it takes a significant part of your lecture. If you were a student of geography, entire 1 to 2 lectures are required to express what El Nino phenomena means. So for now, if the question comes up, and if someone asks you that what do you understand and how is El Nino southern oscillation a disaster, so we can define it in the fashion which I did. Next we have solar flares. So as we know that sun is considered as a hot mass of gases through which continuous nuclear reactions are happening, fusion and fission. So because of which radiation is also working. What happens that these radiations include solar flares. Now, if these solar flares, they try to hit directly the atmosphere of Earth, it heavily damages the atmosphere, which results in environmental level disasters. Next, moving on to man-made disasters, we have some of the disasters like transport failure, bus accidents, train accidents, car accidents, public place failure, fires. A fact to share, just from transportation failures, every year more than 2 lakh people lose their life in India. Due to public place failure, another set of lakh loses their life. Industrial disasters include chemical spills, radioactive spills, chemical gas spills also. Recently at one or two industries, if you have been following the recent news, there was a leakage of disastrous hazardous chemical, and because of which we lost a huge amount of 30 to 40 laborers and other persons involved there. Radioactive spills include the famous example of Chernobyl and also the one that happened recently in Japan, in which due to earthquakes a nuclear plant cracks were developed, and due to which some disaster happened, and what finally happened that radioactive material and radioactivity was leaked in the neighboring areas, and because of which the entire area was to be rehabilitated and some people also lost their lives there. Next we have warfare, which includes war, terrorism, internal conflicts, civil unrest, and CBRNE. We'll take up the last one later in this upcoming slides. Rest of the concepts are very much clear to all of us with regards to war and terrorism. Now, civil unrest and internal conflicts, what they mean, that for example there are some disturbances or conflicts between two particular communities in a state, or the people of state might not be very happy with the governance of the government or the state, so which might create rebel, and it may result in another type of man-made disaster. So the body of policy and administrative decisions and operational activities that pertain to various stages of a disaster at all levels. So it is an applied science, disaster management, which seeks systematic observation and analysis of disasters to improve upon the measures relating to prevention, emergency response, recovery and mitigation. Disaster management encompasses all aspects of planning for responding to disasters, including both pre and post disaster activities. Next, we can also define it as a continuous and integrated process in which planning, organizing, coordinating and implementing measures which must be taken and which are necessary, which include for prevention of danger or threat of any disaster, reducing the risk of any disaster of its severity, capacity building, which includes strengthening our systems, preparedness to deal with any disaster, it includes the training and awareness amongst the masses, prompt response to any threatening disaster situation, further assessing the severity or magnitude of effects of any disaster, and last, evacuation, rescue and relief. So these are very of the common terms and very much repeated by now, so I won't be discussing them in detail. This again we have discussed earlier as the 4 pillars. So again I have taken and divided the strategies accordingly. So I have divided into 3. The proactive strategies, during the disaster or incident, the fundamental or the prompt effective response, what should be taken during the disaster and just after the disaster, what should be the immediate relief, how reconstruction and rehabilitation practices and prevention include the holistic and continuous processes. So as a student of disaster management, these are the phases of disaster management. Firstly, we should get prepared, we should develop disaster preparedness. Next, upon the impact of such a disaster, the response team or the ability to respond to the particular disaster should be good. And post disaster, how the recovery and mitigation measures have to be taken. Now all these phases vary from disaster to disaster. The condition might be different for a flood and it might be different for an earthquake, and similarly it might be totally different for a terrorist attack. Now for each of the common disasters we need to develop a visualization and a thinking that how the various techniques, various things should be done. There might be possibilities that in your university exam case studies might be asked, or your views might be asked that how different phases for a particular disaster might be developed, and for that you should be ready enough. So that's all for today's lecture. In the next lecture we will be starting with the disaster preparedness concept. Now as homework, what I ask you, all of you, to prepare the various brief points regarding phases of disaster management with regards to earthquake. Okay, so we will discuss some things related to earthquake, what should be the various phases, and we'll see whether our points overlap or you might be having some different ideas. So that's all for today's session. See you in the next one.